Hi guys, welcome back to Less is More. My name is Dan Wellman, and today we'll look at Less's ability to evaluate JavaScript expressions. Unfortunately, but for very plausible reasons, the app that we've used to edit our Less files throughout the series isn't able to execute JavaScript when it compiles. It will throw an error instead. So we can't use Crunch for this part of the series, which is a shame, but it does give us the perfect opportunity for compiling our Less file dynamically in the browser using Less.js. So you'll need to download Less.js from the lesscss.org website and then link to the script file after linking directly to the Less file. The template we're using includes an HTML page, so we can update that. So we can download Less.js from the Less website. Great big button here. And we'll just stick that on the desktop for the time being. So we'll include it in the project. And then we just need to update the HTML file. So it's expecting a style sheet, but we're not going to use the style sheet because it's going to get created by the script file. So instead we can link to the Less file directly. And we need to make sure that we update the rel attribute because it's not a style sheet anymore. It's a Less style sheet. And if we don't do this, the script file won't know to evaluate this style sheet. So we have to make sure we update the rel attributes. And then directly after the Less file, we can link to the new script file. So one more thing that you should be aware of as well. We've been using Chrome to look at the template file, but because it uses a file attribute, Chrome won't compile our Less file for us properly. So what will happen is we'll get a page with no styles on it whatsoever. So if we want to use Chrome, we need to run it through a web server. We could just use a different browser, but if we wanted to use Chrome, we would have to run it through a web server. So I'm just going to open it up quickly in Visual Studio, which includes a basic web server. So we'll just launch this in Chrome. Okay, it's still not working for some reason. Yeah, it's because I've spelled the path wrong. So let's try that again. Okay, so now it's not liking our deeply nested thing there, so let's just get rid of that quickly. Yeah, that was just an example I used there, so try that one more time. There we go, it's back to exactly how it was before. So running Less like this is convenient and easy, and despite the fact that Less.js has got to compile the Less file and generate the CSS file to use dynamically, it's been written with performance in mind, and so is very fast, even on old browsers. So this is great for rapid prototyping, although some developers like to stay away from using Less.js in production use. And of course, if the visitor is one of the tiny minority of users that have JavaScript disabled, the Less will not be compiled. So if we inspect the DOM now, we should find that there is a generated style tag here. And this is what Less.js has generated. And all of our styles are in here. In browsers that support local storage, this generated CSS will be saved in local storage. So it'll make subsequent loads of the page even faster, as fast as if it were loading a style sheet from the cache. So we should be able to use JavaScript expressions now. So let's take a quick look at that. We'll still use Crunch as an editor, we just won't do any compiling in it. Using Less.js isn't the only way to make use of Less's JavaScript evaluation, by the way. Other compilers, such as Simpless, which is a great cross-platform compiler, can compile any JavaScript expressions without any issues. I like to use Crunch because it's an editor as well as a compiler, but Simpless is perfectly capable and in some cases superior if you already have a favourite editor to use. Actually, another feature of using the JavaScript compiler is the watch feature. So if we just take a quick look at Simpless. So it's a standalone cross-platform app, and it basically consists of a watch list. So it's watching the less file inside our project folder, and anytime we make a change to our less file, Simpless will automatically recompile our CSS file for us, which is a pretty cool feature. I do use Simpless sometimes, and it's easy and convenient. So we don't have to keep recompiling our file each time we make a change because Simpless does it for us. So as I just mentioned, a great feature of the JavaScript compiler is the watch feature. And it works in a very similar way as the watch list here in Simpless. So we'll just get rid of that a minute. And we can use the watch feature just by adding something to the URL. So if we add that to the URL and then reload the page, if we make any changes to the less file, so let's just change this so that it's, I don't know, black instead. You see in the background here, our web page is automatically updated. So we didn't even have to reload the page, it just did it for us. And that is all thanks to the watch feature. So again, that's pretty useful for rapid prototyping. You don't have to keep recompiling your less file. You can just have the browser automatically update the web page for you. And it won't update the whole web page, it will only update the bits from the less file that have changed. So we'll just put that back to what it was. And we'll save that, and yeah, it's gone back to blue. Anyway, so JavaScript statements are evaluated in less by surrounding the statements with backticks. So if we wanted to work out the inner width of the window for whatever reason, we could use this in our less file. So we could set a new variable, and we'll call it @width, and so because it's a JavaScript expression, we surround it with backticks. But we also want to concatenate px onto the end. So it's enclosed in backticks, and now we just need to escape the quotes surrounding px as well. So we'll use the tilde just to escape that. So if we just use our variable quickly, and if we take a look at, it's worked out the width of the window there, which is awesome. Doing something like this, working out the width of the browser window is obviously only something that we'd want to do when we're using less.js. So if we were compiling with Simpless, this value wouldn't be the width of the browser window because there wouldn't be a browser window. Instead, we'd get the width of the Simpless window, which is probably not what we want. In our JavaScript expression, we were able to access the browser's JavaScript environment, which is useful, but do remember that it's only really applicable when there is a browser environment to actually access. So we can use JavaScript expressions if we're not using less.js, but if we want to access the browser's JavaScript environment, then we should be running it through a browser. So just be aware of that. So you might be wondering at what the effectiveness of using JavaScript evaluation in less is, and there are some great uses for this that don't require access to the browser's JavaScript environment and so don't have to be used with less.js. One such example is a great way of producing font sizes in rem units by combining a parametric mixin with a JavaScript match expression. For more information on this awesome technique, there's a great example up at the JiveBay blog. So do take a look at that if it's something that you're interested in using. In this part, we looked at using the less.js JavaScript compiler in order to compile less on the fly in the browser. Doing this can be useful to put together a quick prototype, and using the JavaScript compiler gives us access to the JavaScript environment within the browser from our less file. So at this point, we've covered pretty much all of the basic features of the language of less. In the next part, we'll look at a slightly more advanced usage of the language used in a practical real-world example, the grid system used in Twitter's Bootstrap. Thanks for watching.